Welcome, residents, to the Dr. DC podcast. My name is producer Richard, and across from me is the doctor himself.
Hello.
Baby, we are back from Fan Expo.
We're back in the Yukon.
Back in the Yukon, back in the Yukon, back
in the Yukon.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
We're so good at this.
Those Toronto girls really knock me out.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Listen to...
That was a wild weekend.
Yeah, make sure you check out our Patreon if you want to check.
Yeah,
get
Double
a full
Dose
download.
$2.49. And where we talk about our Fan Expo weekend. And then also, Challenge Month has started over on the Patreon. Very quietly, our 250th Double Dose.
I noticed that too as I was putting it up. I was like, oh.
And at the end of this month, 400 regular eps.
Holy shit.
Yeah, 650 episodes.
Good God. That's too much podcast.
It's time. Yeah. Hashtag last year of the us.
How you doing with that challenge?
Oh, I told you the challenge. Go subscribe to hear all.
You're truly not gonna make any effort.
We'll see.
God. Oh my God.
I got better things to do.
Listen every week to find out where we're at. But I had a time.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Really already?
Yeah.
How was it that difficult?
My girlfriend found out.
Good.
And so she made it a problem for me.
I listen. I've liked her the whole time. But now that I know she's trolling you, I really like it.
She's really starting to get concerned about the amount that I say, you're just like Reed.
Yeah, she should be. That's not a thing you should say to her.
Yeah.
Even if it's true.
Yeah. The amount that you have the same opinions on stuff, it's upsetting.
Yeah. The right opinion. Because
like
she's smart and I like her.
It's like getting to fuck my best friend.
Best of both worlds.
Yeah, baby. I love
don't
it.
ruin the friendship, but I can picture your face on her.
Yeah. Fuck yeah.
Yeah, nice.
Each week we talk about the weird and wonderful world of DC while fielding questions from listeners like you.
Yeah, baby.
Speaking of Toronto, while we were in Toronto, we went and saw one movie.
Oh, sorry. Hang on. I'm going to just quickly take over here.
But we got news.
Because it would be crazy not to talk about this.
Okay.
That Arlene Sorkin passed away. Arlene Sorkin.
Harley Quinn.
The original Harley Quinn voice actress.
Mr. J.
From Batman the Animated Series.
That's right.
She passed away. She was 67. I think it was like MS. Multiple sclerosis.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But yeah.
She didn't have a weird paint incident.
No, not MS Paint.
Yeah, she didn't have a Microsoft issue.
No, it wasn't that. But yeah, Arlene Sorkin died.
I see you're dying. Do you want some help? Clippy, not the time.
Oh no, this was a mistake.
What did you think I was gonna do?
No, but she's
Incredible voice actor.
But not only was she a great voice actor who brought that character to life and made Harley Quinn.
Yeah.
The
reason why that character is so popular.
The reason that character stuck around and meant anything to anyone at all. But also, she was also the inspiration in some ways for Harley Quinn. Like they were sort of writing it with
to
Arlene
her.
Sorkin in mind.
Oh, that's fun.
And that kind of cadence. They're like Mr. J, like all that kind of stuff.
Oh, I love
whatever.
Sick Reed's voice acting.
Mr. J.
Can you give me a 3-2 line?
I can't. Well, I can in a lower octave.
You know what I'm asking for, though.
3, 2.
Oh my God.
1.
Holy shit. Way to give it.
Yeah. Do it for me.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Oh man. I think I'm about to make some money.
Not 3, 2.
Jesus Christ. But yeah, that happened like just over the past week.
Yeah.
But yeah, really, really sad. Arlene Sorkin died.
Absolutely. My favorite Sorkin.
Certainly of the two I can name. Yeah.
Of the A Sorkins.
Yes. Yeah.
This one's my favorite.
God, are they related?
I have no idea.
I never thought about that.
That's why they did those Joker walk and talks with Harley.
Man, I wonder if they're related,
Could be.
but I won't look it up.
How could I?
Yep. Anyway, back to what you were saying.
While we were in Toronto, we went to see a movie.
We did.
That was a single movie.
Yes,
It was a DC movie.
it was.
We went to see Blue Beetle.
That's right, baby.
Yeah.
Which was a ton. Like, we're not going to spend the episode talking about that specifically, but no spoilers. I really liked it. I thought it was a lot of fun in the way that I think the first Shazam movie is a lot of fun. Like, and that first Shazam movie is like, that's not at the top of my list. It's not like my all-time favorite movie or anything, but it does a lot of things right. I think it's like very heartwarming.
Heck of a good time.
It's got some like good time action and stuff like that in it. I dug it. I was into it.
Yeah, it was a ton.
We
of
were
fun.
having fun.
Yeah. It was a great, very like 80s, 90s throwback in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Lots of fun.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. But at any rate, it also reminded me that like the movie's been out for a couple of weeks, and it was like, we should do a Blue Beetle episode.
Yeah, look at us being on top.
Yeah, 3 weeks late.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I better call my partner.
because you're 3 weeks late.
Yeah. All right. Let's get into Facebook.
Going to the face of the book. Going to the Facebook. Jesus.
First question comes from the most interesting resident.
Oh, Stephen Marion Almagro.
That is correct.
Wait. Sorry. Stephen Marion Almagro.
Now get on your knees.
Yeah. Beg.
Oh my God. Good girl.
Nope. I can't. I don't have that kind of confidence in real life. They're going to hear that I don't believe it. Halfway through an ASMR video, you're like, no, I'm such a fucking,
I'm so sorry.
such a fucking phony.
I'm a bad boy. Karlak, come for me.
Oh, man.
Do you have a favorite Ted Kord moment from JLI?
So Ted Kord, the second Blue Beetle, the one that is like from the Justice League International, the Bwaha League, right?
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, it's a little bit basic, but it's got to be where they hide his cookies, right? Where they hide Martian Manhunter's cookies, Beetle and Booster.
Great moment.
And he goes
fucking
feral,
Hulk, yeah.
and like crazy.
Love that.
It's got to be that. That's a fun one for me. Yeah, I don't know if another one really just jumps out for me. The vibe of Beetle and Booster is great, just generally. But that's the only kind of like significant, specific moment I really think about from that in terms of like what's a great Blue Beetle moment. Do you have a different one?
Not really. No, I mean, I definitely don't really have the knowledge, I think, of his JLI, like Ted Kord stuff.
Right.
All right. Next question from Chad Bokelman, who asks, Ted and Jaime are familiar to me, but Dan is much more of a question mark. The film mentions Dan had a bond with the Scarab. How did that work? And if Dan is a Golden Age character in a sense, why have we never seen him as a part of the JSA?
So, a few things in there. So, there are ostensibly 3 Blue Beetles.
Okay.
There's the current Blue Beetle, Jaime Reyes,
Yep.
the subject of the movie.
Yep.
Where he has this alien scarab attached to him that gives him this suit and all these abilities and stuff like that. It has an AI in it, and it comes from it's xenotechnology. Yeah. There's Ted Kord, the Blue Beetle from just before, who didn't have any powers, is like a tech gadgets sort of superhero. Yeah. Had a bunch of silly adventures. And then there's his predecessor, the original Blue Beetle, Dan Garrett. So there's a few things in there. One is that Dan Garrett was initially published by Fox Publications.
Okay.
And he had like a different background, and it had nothing to do with a scarab.
Oh, okay.
And then when Charlton published the character, they invented the scarab thing. There was a mystical scarab called Kajida, and he would say that, and he would turn into the Blue Beetle, and he'd get strength and stuff like that. But back then, it just made him look like a mystery man kind of thing.
Sure.
When they do the Jaime Reyes thing, the bigger it's that it's a bigger retcon. It's that it's actually not magic; it's alien, right?
Yeah.
And that's the bigger thing, and that it fully activates for Jaime. The way I think they've explained it in the comics is it like partially bonded to Dan, didn't work at all for Ted,
Yeah.
and then fully bonded to Jaime. Some version of that. As for the why we haven't really seen Dan with the Justice Society, because he is ostensibly the Golden Age Blue Beetle, is that I'm pretty sure that idea of him actually living and being in the Golden Age is a retcon.
Oh.
Like, initially, he's supposed to be, like, more or less contemporary to Ted because he's an active superhero when Ted starts.
Okay.
Like, he dies and Ted becomes the Blue Beetle.
Like,
so
how much Dan did we actually get?
Not that much, to be honest.
Yeah.
But maybe, like, 60 issues or something like that.
Oh, okay. Not much, yeah.
But, like, when Ted takes over, it's like Dan is the Blue Beetle and dies, and then Ted takes over. So they're contemporaries. And yeah, Dan precedes him a bit, but he's essentially just a Silver Age character, more or less. You know what I mean? It would be just like if Barry or Hal died in the 60s.
Sure.
They're still Silver Age characters. I think the retcon that Dan is active in, like the 40s or something like that, that comes later. He's sort of inserted in the background. Like, I think you see him in JSA, The Golden Age. I'm pretty sure Dan Garrett is in with all of like those heroes and stuff like that in that story. But the reason you don't really see him with that is because we've just not really explored it that much. You theoretically could, but it's already a relatively recent retcon, and B, he's just sort of off doing his own thing. And they've never really gone to the trouble of inserting him back into Justice Society kind of history.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, on that point, from Charlton posting, do you prefer Dan Garrett, the Charlton archaeologist, or Dan Garrett, the Fox Comics psychopath?
So the Fox Comics one, if I remember correct, was the original Dan Garrett, spelt with one T. And that Dan Garrett is like, dad was a cop and gets killed, and he kind of goes on this crusade against crime sort of thing. Okay. If I'm not mistaken. Or maybe he was a cop even. But he wears, like, his suit is supposed to be some kind of, like, chainmail, and he takes a vitamin called vitamin X2 or vitamin 2X that's supposed to give him some limited kind of strength and stuff like that. But he just goes around punching bad guys and stuff like that. That's that one. To be honest, I haven't really read that much of the Fox stuff, so I don't know how deep his psychopathy goes.
Sure.
But that's more or less that. When Charlton starts publishing the character, they give him an extra T in his last name. And then they also totally change that. It's not vitamin 2X. He's not a cop. There's nothing like that. He's an archaeologist who...
I love that they're like, we love the name.
Yeah, that's the bit we'll keep. But also, put another T on it. It's cleaner.
Yeah. It's not cleaner. It's more complicated.
Yeah. But he's an archaeologist. He uncovers the scarab, which is also a new invention. The Fox one didn't have that. Yeah. He uncovers the scarab in Egypt. It gives it powers. And, yeah, he says Kajida, and he gets the powers. He becomes Blue Beetle. And he had some strength and durability and some stuff like that. Like, he gets some powers from it. Had nothing to do with a vitamin or anything like that. I mean, that's definitely more interesting. Like, I'm more interested in someone who is, like, in pursuit of knowledge, or, like, that's their alter ego is someone curious than someone, like, punishing.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, also someone who's just like, the problem with cops is they're not violent enough.
Yeah, exactly. I'm slightly butchering that, but that's essentially the difference. But yeah, I prefer the Charlton version for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, with that, let's leave Facebook and head over to Blue Sky. Hey there, Mr. Blue Sky. Don't you want to sky with blue?
If you...
I think we nailed it. The fuck's Blue Sky?
It's like another fucking pseudo Twitter replacement.
Why are you jumping on it?
Because that's where more comic people are.
Okay. Sure.
All of these things are unfortunate pale imitations of what we used to like about Twitter.
Yeah.
But I'm there, so find me. We're all having fun.
Sounds like it. The one question we have from Blue Sky.
I love having to check 6 fucking things.
Yeah. You shouldn't.
Well, but I'm trying to find the one, and then I'll drop the, like...
Sure.
I'm dipping toes in a bunch of things. I'm trying to commit to one, but none of them... It's just not the same.
Fucking, I've been there, buddy. One question from Blue
In
Sky.
Baldur's Gate, I just get everything I want.
And everyone.
Yeah, exactly.
But the only thing you want from Baldur's Gate.
Yeah, whatever. It's like, ugh, fine, another fucking fight.
I'm trying to fight these urges.
Yeah, but actually...
I'm not fighting these urges. There's very little fight.
When it comes to urges, I'm a pacifist.
So you just don't do anything?
Yep.
From Mullet Overlord, who asks, has Jaime always had great hand-to-hand combat skills, or do you think Zolo just brought some of that Cobra Kai swagger with him? Also, the Taco versus Battinson Batmobile, who wins?
Oh, this is all movie stuff.
Yeah.
I don't want to go too deep on this. First of all, I'm positive his name is pronounced Holo.
It's X, I don't know.
Well, yeah, like Mexico, Tejas, right? So Holo.
Sure, that. YOLO.
Jesus. That's why. He in the movie, he does, like, when he lets the Scarab take over, he shows some, like, cool moves. There's some, like, cool kicks and stuff, like there's some more physical prowess. But, I mean, they do make a point in it. It's either that he's let the Scarab take him over or that they're working in harmony, right?
Mm-hmm.
The bits where it's just Jaime is not him being, like, a master fighter or anything like that. And I think that's more or less true. Certainly as he's starting out. But Jaime has also been the Blue Beetle for quite a while in the comics. And he's been on the Titans, the Teen Titans and stuff like that. He knows how to fight now.
Sure.
But if we're talking about that, that version of him, brand new, just got the Scarab, then yeah, I think he's relying on the Scarab to bring any kind of, like, martial talent, you know?
Yeah.
But the movie does a good job of that, I would say. The second part of the question is the uncle's truck versus Pattinson's, like, the Pattinson Batmobile. Which is better? I guess it's the Batmobile.
It said Battinson?
Well, yeah, that's what I just said. The Robert Pattinson Batmobile.
No, I said Battinson.
Which is the Robert Pattinson Batmobile.
Because it said Battinson Batmobile, which makes it seem like it's a two different thing. So I thought it was Billy Batson's Batmobile or something.
No. No, Pattinson is Robert Pattinson's
well
Batman.
then, yeah, the Batmobile's better.
Yeah, Batmobile's definitely better. But yeah, I mean, there's some fun bits with the truck, the taco truck.
Also, my truck is basically a Tacoma, so...
Your car is
Oh my God.
It's not a
It's
truck.
literally the body of a truck.
Well, sure, it doesn't look or ride or anything like a truck.
So it's a truck.
Okay.
It is a Tacoma.
The thing that amuses me the most about it is how upset you get about this. I love that you really wanted to own a truck, but not if it looked or acted like a truck.
I wanted a truck, but I don't need the cab, and so
so you don't need a truck then.
Yeah, but I want one.
Yeah, but you don't have one. You just have a car that wants to be a truck.
I have a car with all of the pieces of a truck.
You have a car that dreams of truckdom.
Yeah, if I was built on the body of a thing that I wanted, I guess I'm not that thing. Even though all of the pieces of me are that. Oh, okay, never mind.
Wow, Richard.
Jesus Christ.
Fucking wow.
Wait, so it's calling itself a truck, though?
No, you're calling it. You're calling it a truck.
I think it calls itself a truck.
It very clearly wants to be a car. And you're a monster.
Because the way it looks.
Fuck you. I can't believe you. It's 2023.
Yeah. No, I'm turning it around. It's you now.
We're both
both
trying to make each other the fucking bad guy there.
Okay. Yeah, it's the Batmobile. Let's move on. Let's go to Threads.
The Threads. A fucking perfect drop.
Yep. From Rodders J04, who asks, who do you think the Black Beetle was? After reading his interactions with Booster Gold and Jaime Reyes, that was one of the lingering thread I wish would have been wrapped up, although it's probably too late now.
That's from the Booster Gold series in the late 2000s. This Black Beetle, who claimed to be the Blue Beetle from a future century, came back in time and had recruited Dan Garrett and Jaime to try and save Ted.
Mm-hmm.
But it was like a ploy or something. It ended up making a separate timeline where where Blue Beetle lived, but they didn't stop Max Lord.
Okay.
So he was still part of Checkmate and shit like that.
Okay.
But that's oh man, what happened with that? I truly don't remember what happened with that. I don't think we ever actually got a reveal of who Black Beetle was. I think there was a slight kind of nod that maybe it was Ted or something, but I don't fully remember. I don't think there's a lot of good evidence in there to point to it being anyone specific other than just someone from the future. You know what I mean? Yeah. I think maybe if that had actually wrapped up better, it might have been leading to a big reveal, but I don't know that there's enough comic evidence in there to really say that who the Black Beetle was. A very different version of the Black Beetle showed up on Young Justice on the cartoon. That Black Beetle was actually an alien. He was a member of the species, the Reach, who are the aliens that create the scarabs. And they create them to be basically infiltrators to prep worlds for invasion and colonization and stuff like that. And on the show, Black Beetle was this jacked as fuck Reach alien that had a scarab. And the whole thing was that Jaime's scarab was, quote, off mode, and he was trying to put him back on mode, make him the world kind of destroyer again.
Yeah.
He talked with a very clicky modulated voice, and the Reach have always been insect like, but they really amped up the insecty kind of traits of them, I think, on Young Justice.
That's cool as hell.
That Black Beetle's pretty fucking cool.
Yeah, that sounds rad. I like that.
Yeah, he was a good bad guy. That's season 2.
Yeah. That's awesome. All right. Well, with that, let's move from Threads to Instagram.
Now we're going to Instagram. Take some questions and answer them.
We're jumping all over today. First question comes from Dem Jinkies, who asks, did they ever explain why the scarab never worked for Ted? I always found it weird that it worked fine for Dan and Jaime, but not the tech genius.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing was, until Jaime, the idea was that the scarab was magic. So being a tech genius
didn't really help.
Doesn't necessarily guarantee you anything when magic's involved. There's always been an element of you having to be chosen, right? Or there's some kind of bond between a person and the scarab. It's not just anyone with the scarab can do.
Sure.
Kind of Green Lantern-y that way, but not exactly the same principle. But certainly once Jaime came around and they retconned that it was like xenotechnology, and like I said, I think they did say that at that point that like Jaime was like fully integrated with it. That's why his Blue Beetle thing had all of these all this shit that Dan didn't have, right?
Yeah.
Dan just got like a Mystery Man suit and a bit stronger, and then Jaime has like sonic guns and jets and all that kind of shit, right? So they did kind of retcon a thing about like how much the scarab was either A, functional, or B, like integrated with people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Dan died and Ted got the scarab, but he never made it work. He also lost it for a bit during Crisis on Infinite Earths, I think. Mm-hmm. Then he gets it back and he loses it again because it ends up in I can't remember how, but it ends up in the Rock of Eternity. And then when the Rock of Eternity explodes in Day of Vengeance, right before Infinite Crisis, that's when the scarab lands in El Paso, and that's when it finds Jaime. And then Jaime becomes the Blue Beetle in Infinite Crisis 3. Sure. So Ted doesn't even really like have much ownership of the scarab even, because he loses it a few times, I think.
Yeah.
It doesn't come up a ton. So it's not always sitting on Ted's desk. It's not like the writers were just like, and we'll never make it work for him. It's that they kind of like moved past the scarab thing. Once they established Ted, they were like, yeah, it's the scarab, whatever. Sure. They kind of left it until someone was like, whatever happened to that thing, and then brought it back. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay, sure, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was really, there was no real good reason.
No, although I think it's probably also that Charlton wanted to have a more kind of like Batman-y character.
Sure.
Someone that was a bit more of a tech kind of person, right? You know, because truly, Charlton didn't publish all that much Dan Garrett stuff. Most of the Dan Garrett stuff is the Fox stuff. Then they switched to Ted. So I think they were just kind of reinventing the character, you know?
Next question comes from Cursed Blob, who asks, how did Ted come back to life? I always felt like I skipped over some unknown story.
So Ted dies very gruesomely in Countdown to Infinite Crisis. He uncovers Maxwell Lord's plan with the Omax and stuff like that. No one believes him when he's putting the pieces together, and no one takes him seriously because he's cultivated a reputation of not being taken seriously. And he ends up going solo, and he gets beaten, and Max shoots him in the head and kills him.
Yeah.
Which is an inciting incident that has some effects on a number of different heroes in a number of different ways and things like that as Infinite Crisis pops off. And he stays dead. Booster tries to go back in time and save him. But it's like one of those fixed point in time things. They have that Black Beetle thing, but it makes like an alternate timeline. Ted has to go back and reinsert himself into the moment that he dies. All that kind of shit.
Yeah.
How he comes back, the short version of it is that there's not. Well, the real version is that they rebooted continuity. In the New 52, Ted just ends up showing up. We meet Ted for the first time at the end of Forever Evil. Forever Evil 7, I think, is the first appearance of Ted Kord in the New 52 timeline. Oh, wow. We don't really see him be Blue Beetle particularly because Jaime's already Blue Beetle, and that timeline is weird. As we unwind these things and we make it all one continuity, the thing that I don't think they've actually attacked is how did Ted come back to life? Because now we're in a scenario where he did die, and now he's back, and he's Blue Beetle, or he's mentoring Jaime or whatever. And I don't know if it's as simple as they just go, Crisis did it,
Yeah.
even in universe, or if they inserted a history piece. I'm pretty sure they didn't, but yeah, if you're feeling like you were reading it, you were like, wait, when did he come back? It's just that they rebooted continuity. It wasn't like a thing that happened.
Yeah.
Because in Brightest Day, it's not Ted that comes back, it's Maxwell Lord.
Oh, wow.
He comes back to life in Brightest Day after Blackest Night. And then there's a whole fucking schlemazel with him again. But actually, there's a bit where he makes it that people forget that Ted ever existed. Or, sorry, not that. They think he makes it look like Ted killed himself.
Oh.
And only a couple of people remember that he didn't. Booster and Batman and someone else. And eventually they go, oh, no, Maxwell Lord did it, blah, blah, blah. That's part of the arc in Brightest Day. But Ted's not back for that. He's just dead. So, yeah, if you feel like you missed something, you actually didn't. He just was alive again at one point.
Fair.
Yeah.
Next question from Damiana Demak, who asks, why is the scarab a thing? Isn't that usually associated with Egyptian mythology in pop culture, i.e. the mummy? If the scarab is Egypt related, should we decolonize Blue Beetle and give it back to the Egyptians?
So, what's with the scarab? I mean, yes. And as soon as Charlton invented that scarab thing as part of Dan Garrett's thing, it was put in Egypt, that it was in the tomb of Prince, like, Khafre or something. And Dan is an archaeologist, and he finds it and becomes the Blue Beetle. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. There's been that kind of push with Dr. Fate, right? We have Khalid Nassour is Dr. Fate now. So we've sort of decolonized that thing, because Dr. Fate was all Ankhs and like Egyptian kind of stuff, right? For a long time. So we've done that with him. Black Adam has always basically been like Kandaki, so that's, quote, decolonized already. The Blue Beetle question is interesting, and the scarab. Here's the problem with. I don't have a problem with the idea of the decolonizing thing. The problem is when you start digging into the lore of the Blue Beetle thing. When it was just magic, you could go like, oh, and old Egyptian magic imparted into the scarab. But as soon as they made it xenotechnology, it becomes an ancient alien scenario where it's like, oh, so Egyptians love scarabs because
Oh, weird.
I know there are still scarabs on Earth, but there's this extra weird layer to it now where the
weird.
Reach, who are kind of like a beetle people, like very vaguely, made these scarabs, and then it landed, and then you go like, and scarabs are like a major theme in Egypt. It like becomes this like, but it came from somewhere else now. So if anything,
I wonder if that had any influence on it, to be honest.
What do you mean?
Like, I wonder if the writers were like ancient aliens.
Oh, I don't think so necessarily, because it's not the first thing that where we've done that with fucking Egypt.
Sure.
Although I think
we're gonna Hawks.
Well, exactly, and I think there is maybe an argument to be made that subconsciously we have been trained to just assume the pyramids are impossible.
Yes.
So, like, they might not be thinking it, but it's like we keep doing it to Egypt, so it kind of feels that way.
Yeah.
So I who knows? Maybe it is. But what it means for the decolonization, I like Jaime as Blue Beetle, and it's really important to have that Latinx superhero in there. And like, we watched that movie, and it feels like so Hispanic.
Yeah.
And then also just the credits, like everyone that worked, like what a triumph that way. You know what I mean?
Totally.
I don't want to take that.
No, I know.
But there's also the part of me that's like, well, it is like the Egypt of it is actually the least part of it.
Yeah. Now
that it's an alien, and even Dan, like, he just found it in Egypt, and he was like, "See ya," and like,
sure.
But Ted never used it. Like, so we've gone so far, and he never called himself the Scarab. Called himself the Beetle. We got beetles elsewhere.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I feel like it sounds like I'm making excuses, but there's a part of me that's like, I actually don't know that this is the character I'd be on I'd be on the decolonization crusade
Yeah.
for. There are other characters I think we should hit well before this one, probably. You know.
Yeah. Next question from Obadede98, who asks, what happened to the other scarabs and what planets do they land on in the comics? In Young Justice, there's a green one for Mars. In the movie, there's more than one shown in the beginning.
Yeah, it's true. In the opening credits, they allude that there are many scarabs out there. So like I said, the Reach create these scarabs to sort of infiltrate and prep worlds for them to take over. The reason that the Reach do this is because they, at one point, fought like a war with the Green Lanterns.
Oh.
Because they were this ever-expanding empire. And they reached an agreement.
Reach.
Oh, fuck yeah. Where they couldn't conquer new worlds. But they could be invited. Or something like that.
Sure.
This is a big part of Young Justice Season 2 as well. But it's something like that in the comics too. And so they make these scarabs to be these kind of infiltrators to like take over someone, to prep the world so that if the Reach show up, they go like, oh, it's you guys, come on in. And then they can take over. More or less, that was the idea.
Yeah.
Now, what planets do they go to? I mean, we don't know necessarily all the names of the specific planets because they're all just part of the Reach. They can't, by definition, be most of the other planets we know because those planets aren't conquered.
Yeah.
Right? So all the other planets we could name, Korugar, Tamaran, Okara, Oa, whatever, kind of can't fall into that because they're not just Reach-dominated worlds.
Yeah.
And they have this agreement kind of thing in place. But they're presumably, it keeps happening. And they're large enough because the thing is that Jaime's scarab has malfunctioned. Something is off with it that allows him to have a symbiotic relationship with it and not just it takes him over.
Yeah.
So we can't assume that they've all gone haywire. So it means that on other planets, there are other ones. In Young Justice Season 2, one landed on Mars a long time ago. So there's actually a Martian beetle. There's a green beetle.
Oh, cool.
And his name is Ba'ar Zoum. And he's the green beetle. He shows up in that season, which is pretty cool.
That's awesome. I love that. All right. Next question comes from Boo the Fourth Wind, who asks, does Ted need a partner to be relevant? I think he's great on his own, but he doesn't seem to be able to hold an audience in the way that some other characters do.
I mean, that's true of a lot of characters, though.
Sure.
I think we want all of our characters to hold an audience the way Superman or Batman can, but that's just not the reality. I know what you mean, though. Ted doesn't really stand up all that well solo. And I don't mean as a character. Like, I think you could totally write some solo stories, but I just mean they keep, like, he was paired up with the Question for a bit, both in publication, so that his stories were in books with the Question, but also they were a team.
Sure.
That's the team that Night Owl, Rorschach are based on. Is Blue Beetle in the Question.
Oh, okay.
He's teamed up with Booster, Beetle and Booster, a great buddy team up, and like the real kind of like heart of the laughs in JLI. He tries to have some like romantic pairings. He had an almost thing with Barbara. That, I mean, I say almost thing. It wasn't going to happen, but he and Barbara kind of were ships passing a little bit. He's a mentor with Jaime now. Like, it does kind of feel like Ted only works as a partner. I'd like to think he's pretty good on his own as a character, but I don't know. Maybe that doesn't, especially now. I don't know that now's the time to explore solo Ted. Like, if it was going to happen, it was going to happen more when he had his own book and stuff like that. Jaime's the Blue Beetle now.
Yeah.
So I'm fine with Ted being a kind of partnered up character.
Mm-hmm.
We see him with Booster. We see him with the Question. We see him with Jaime, whatever. At this point, I think that actually maybe makes more sense.
Sure.
But I don't want that to be a value judgment on the character. It's just, that's the reality of it. Like, I want Metamorpho to have a book or whatever, but like, there's not always call for that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. All right. Next question from Jack Stonewall, who asks, what is Ted's origin story? I love that he was just a normal, smart dude, but I don't really know his motivation. Right. Was it at all inspired from Dan Garrett or something else?
So it is connected to Dan Garrett. So Dan Garrett, when Charlton took him over again, they made him an archaeologist. One of the students in his class is Ted Cord, this sort of genius engineer kind of kid. Here's the basic premise of Ted's original origin story that may or may not be entirely true now.
Okay.
He had an uncle who was trying to make an army of robots or androids to take over the world.
Oh.
And Ted was helping Dan stop him.
Oh, okay.
Ted.
So Cord Industries existed then?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because this is the whole thing from the movie and stuff where like the grandfather had this company. It was a very different direction.
I think you could see the inspiration. They even went back to this. So Ted, as just Ted, is helping Dan as the Blue Beetle.
Sure.
To stop this. And in the course of this adventure, Dan dies. And gives the scarab to Ted. It doesn't work for Ted, but he becomes the Blue Beetle anyway.
Oh, I love that.
His own way. Ted's thing was he always had like sonic guns or like BB guns or like air weapons.
Sure.
Like his thing was always like...
Which they bring that to Jaime.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, Jaime uses like sonic weapons and shit like that too. Yeah, totally. Ted's thing was he was always like soft Batman.
Sure.
Where Batman made like sharp things to throw and grapples with. Ted would make like a big round bug that flew in the sky, or he'd make gas bombs, or he'd make... Like Ted was always like soft Batman. Like very capable and very smart and stuff like that, but where Batman maybe had a little bit more of that kind of steely precision, or Ted always had a more gentle approach, I guess. Yeah. So that was the kind of Blue Beetle that he was. Yeah.
But I love that intro.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And actually, like a decent amount of that is intact for the movie. That's not even really spoilers or anything.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Next question from James Poole, who asks, Dan was a part of the JSA and Ted was a part of the JLA, but Jaime seems to switch between being in the Teen Titans and being in the Justice League. Which team do you prefer him to be on?
So Dan wasn't really in the JSA. He's in one Elseworlds JSA thing, I think, but Dan, like mainline, was never in the Justice Society.
Okay.
You're right. Ted has been a member of Justice Leagues.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jaime is interesting because, especially where he is right now, because Jaime's been around since like 2005, but we're still playing him young. He's no longer in high school. He's no longer in university even, I think.
Okay. Closer to where we get him.
Well, I'm trying to remember from graduation day if he graduated high school or if he graduated college. But either way, Jaime is off as a more of an adult. Now, but he's still like a young adult. But yeah, we've seen him on the Teen Titans and in that kind of context. He was briefly on the Justice League as well. You know, during Dark Crisis on Infinite Earths, he's on that new Justice League that John Kent tries to put together. What do I prefer? To be honest, and I don't know if I can put my finger on why, I kind of prefer him not on either.
Oh, okay.
I like him as just kind of like an independent, it's overdone, the comparison between Jaime and Peter Parker.
Yeah.
Like the Blue Beetle and Spider-Man.
Yeah.
But there is a thing, like, I know Spider-Man has been on teams, but I don't know that that's the thing I like about Spider-Man.
No, me
You know what I mean? Like, do I care if he's on the Fantastic Four? Not really. Do I care if he's on the Avengers? Like, the Avengers should call him.
Yeah.
But I kind of like the idea that he's got a smaller focus. And certainly if we take, like, the approach of the movie or even the comics, like, he's protecting Palmyra City and stuff like that. I like the idea that maybe he'd make the choice to make an impact where he can. Now, obviously, he's got this alien technology that makes him incredibly powerful. When something big happens, call Jaime.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I like the idea of him just being on a Justice League all the time.
Yeah, I could probably agree with that.
I kind of like the idea of him being like, I'm going to do my own thing, but I'll help whenever you need me.
Yeah.
You know, like, I like that. To me,
I think I agree with you.
I don't even like the idea necessarily of him like aspiring to the Justice League. I think he's maybe meant for something a little bit more like individually fulfilling or satisfying.
Yeah. I like that too.
Yeah.
All right, let's leave Instagram and head on over to Reddit,
where everyone's nice, no one's ever mean.
First question comes from Diaper Gal Kate, who asks, "How strong is Blue Beetle? Do the shows portray him well in terms of power?"
Oh man, Young Justice sure does. Like, he's like the biggest fear in that show is that his Scarab will become fully active again, because these beetles can do almost anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that Young Justice depicts him as pretty powerful, capable of a lot. When you think of what the suit is doing,
Feels very like lantern-y, yeah.
It is lantern-y in some ways, but because it's not light constructs, you got to think of what this suit is doing. It's like matter manipulation, like to not just to make different weapons appear the way Cyborg does or something like that, but also like he can make that like I don't know what you call it, but like the staple gun weapon that he does, where you like and it like goes around someone's arm.
Yeah.
But that's like matter.
Yeah.
And what happens to it when he's done? Like, we don't see him picking them up.
No.
So, like, the suit is converting energy then into matter
that's crazy.
that it can dispose of. Like, on a fundamental level, if you really wanted to delve into it as a writer, what this suit is doing is at will messing with matter and energy.
Crazy.
Which is, it's also a completely sentient artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
It is a like fully compatible like symbiote, basically
pulling energy from what? Yeah.
Well, yeah, exactly. Or matter from what? The suit is fully like environmentally adaptable. It's super strong. You can fly. It makes things like jets. So now, like, what is it
propelling from?
What is it burning? Like, what is that reaction? Is again, it's fucking with matter and energy in a way that we kind of blow by, but if you stopped and thought about it, this thing is like insanely powerful.
That's crazy, yeah.
So I think it's safe to say that the Blue Beetle is extremely powerful. Now, if we're just talking about like what could he lift? He's not as strong as Wonder Woman, or I'd say even Aquaman or something like that. But he has so many other abilities and powers, and the suit could do so many things and stuff that's a little bit different. But unlike if the question is more about raw power, he's not in the top, I would say. But if it's about like what is the potential of Blue Beetle, it's like, holy shit, there's a lot going on there.
Yeah, who knows?
Yeah.
All right, next question from Go Speed Racer Go Zero, who asks, "Is Ted the smartest Blue Beetle? And what's his relationship with other Justice Leaguers?"
Ted is very ingenious and very creative. He's a great inventor. He's a really smart problem solver. But is he the smartest? Ted frequently lets Cord Industries run almost into the ground to fund his superheroing.
Yeah.
He barely runs it as a company. You know, is that smart? Not really, because if that goes down, it makes it a lot harder for him to be a superhero. You know, how many Blue Beetle stories, or that Blue and Gold book where they're struggling to like make ends meet, or like in Countdown to Infinite Crisis, Cord Industries' money is like dried up. He's supposed to be helping to fund the Birds of Prey, and he can't like pay the bills and shit.
wow.
Like, so Ted is a very intelligent man, but I don't know how smart he always is.
But then in comparison to the other
Dan
Bleeders.
Garrett, I think, is probably a very smart fellow, but not necessarily have as much of a genius as Ted.
Yeah.
We're kind of splitting those definitions a bit. Jaime, same thing. Is he's not? He's talented, but he's not like a genius like Ted.
He's more about like a heart kind of guy.
And totally, he's more of a heart thing. Absolutely. They're all bringing something different to the table. And even then, Ted, on the scale of the other smart heroes, Batman, Mr. Terrific, whatever, Ted is not all the way up there. Again, very accomplished, but they make the point of calling him like an engineer and stuff in some things. He's a scientist too, but it's almost like that. I don't know. They're trying to make it sound like he's a little more blue collar.
Sure.
As far as billionaire inventors go, he's the blue collar. You know what I mean?
Sure.
It's all very kind of silly to draw lines like that, but
I hear what you're
that's
saying.
the vibe, I think, of him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's his relationship with the other Justice Leaguers?
Oh, I mean, if you go by Countdown to Infinite Crisis, strained. Like when he needs them, very few of them actually help him out. Now, that's then. They've all lived with him having died and stuff like that. I think it's probably a little bit different now. I think he's got some friends and stuff like that. There's people that remember him fondly in that, but there's, I think, always the lingering, like, Jesus, you and Booster, man. Like, just take it seriously for fucking once.
Yeah.
Like, I do think there is a little bit of looking down their nose at Blue Beetle and stuff like that, In Countdown to Infinite Crisis, Martian Manhunter fucking blows him off. Wonder Woman is like, I'll come help you, and then doesn't. Batman's like, get the fuck out of here, Ted.
Wow.
Like, I don't have time for you.
That's crazy.
All these people, the only person that doesn't blow him off is Booster, but then Booster gets injured, and so then Ted goes off alone, gets fucking killed, and then all of those heroes go,
Up, yeah.
That's a real kind of watershed moment there. So I imagine the attitude has changed significantly there, but I do think that Jaime probably has a warmer relationship with the Justice Leaguers than Ted does.
Well, yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.
All right, let's leave Reddit and head on over to the Doc Scored.
Oh, fuck.
Doc Scored. Yep. Doc Scored.
Doc Scored is forever.
Oh,
you
God.
could score docs and docs it. No one docs in the scored when you scored in the docs.
Wow. Somebody's been watching
Da-da-da-da-da.
007 movies.
Yeah, baby. Man, Diamonds Are Forever fucking sucks.
Yeah.
Listen to Bonding Time on the Patreon.
That song rips, though.
Song's pretty good. It's no Goldfinger, but it's decent.
Sure. You got Goldfinger.
Yeah.
First question comes from the moral compass of the Doc Squad, who asks, what are the differences and similarities between Blue Beetle and Night Owl?
Sure. So Night Owl is from Watchmen.
Yeah.
Based on Ted. Based on
The one thing I know is the ships look similar.
Well, yeah. So Archimedes, the flying ship that Night Owl has, looks very similar to the Bug.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That kind of like, it looks so unaerodynamic,
Yes.
just a big oval kind of thing. Yeah. So yes, that's a big one. The idea of inheriting the mantle from a mentor.
Sure.
Because, there's the original Night Owl who was part of the Minutemen.
Yes.
And Hollis Mason, and then what's his name? Dan Dryberg is the second one. The using tech, not having powers, and using tech and stuff, teaming up with a like largely deranged vigilante.
Sure.
The Rorschach question connection there. Yeah. I mean, I think it starts to break down a bit more after that, because again, this story was trying to do something very specific, and I'd maybe make the argument that there's not too many more similarities beyond that. The idea of like Dan kind of half giving up and having that's not a thing I could not see Ted do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like he's not Batman, right? Like where he's like, I will never give up. I will never fucking stop. Just try it. You know, Ted would be like, maybe it's time. You know, like
I'm not having the effect I thought I was.
He's the kind of character that could have that epiphany. So the idea of Dan hanging up the night owl thing is not outrageous in that metaphor, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'd probably mostly leave it there. I think Dan is portrayed more capably than Ted is.
Sure.
Although there is this kind of like even in the book with Jaime, like Ted is always like, oh, I tried to invent a thing. Did it work? And he goes, no, not really. It's like Ted is like kind of like haphazard mentor for Jaime. It's not that he's incompetent. It's that he's distracted.
Sure.
You know, like it's that kind of thing. Dan doesn't have that in Watchmen. Like Night Owl's pretty focused. Sort of character. He gets right back into it pretty easy. There's no like, ooh, shake the rust off kind of thing. He just kind of gets back into it. So, yeah.
All right. Next question from Holodeck Janitor Butt, who asks, if Maxwell Lord tried to assassinate Jaime the same way he killed Ted, do you think he'd be successful? In other words, would the Scarab step in to prevent it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the Scarab's primary thing is not to let the host die, right? Because, again, they don't work for everybody. They've got to... There has to be this kind of relationship in there. You know, so, I mean, if someone pulled a gun, the Scarab would definitely try and stop it. Now, here's the thing. If that story was different and we knew that Jaime was coming, that Max had the OMAC program, maybe he'd prep something different. Yeah. I think Max's approach would be the same. It'd be like, join me or die, basically. And then he would do something to kill Jaime. But it might not just be like a regular gun with a regular bullet like you can do with Ted.
Yeah.
You know? So, you know, that's part of it, for sure. The other piece is, I don't know how... I mean, it depends on the writer, but how autonomous the Scarab is, you know, like,
sure,
or how not even autonomous, but like unconscious,
sure,
the Scarab is, you know, like if Jaime's asleep and someone shoots him, does the Scarab stop it? Is it constantly scanning?
Sure.
I think you could reasonably write that. I wouldn't think it was crazy, but it's also like I'm positive there's comic evidence of like while he's Jaime, someone like blow darts him and then he gets kidnapped. And you're like, oh, he wasn't the Blue Beetle when that, like, there must be that counter evidence out there too. I'm positive it's in there. So how much he needs to be actually like working with the Scarab is maybe a slight question mark for that.
Yeah.
That whole scenario. But for the most part, the Scarab would be like, no, that's a gun. That's like the first thing we learned how to deal with. Yeah.
All right, last question from Big Bear, who asks, if you've seen the movie, did seeing it maybe give you guys more insight on how being a lower middle class Latino in the U.S. is? Was there anything in the movie that surprised you or that made you maybe a little bit more surprised on the matter?
I think the movie does a great job of being Latin, but I think it would be a mistake to say that I watched it and went like, oh, I get what it's like. You know what I mean? Like beyond the broad strokes of like racism and systematic oppression and like, you know, economic disparities and stuff like that. The thing that I will say I've noticed as more and more kind of like Latinx stories are being told is such an important part of all of them is obviously like the family unit, right? So whether it's, oh my God, don't even get me started. Whether it's in Blue Beetle, and his family coming together and like them using like Ted's old shit,
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
them saving him. I like. Sorry, spoilers. We might beep that, but whatever. Whether it's how involved the family is in that movie, or like in Encanto, or in Book of Life, or Coco, or like whatever these things are, all the family stuff is like always at the heart of the story. That I really appreciate, and I do think it makes the movie a little bit different from some other ones. It's even different from Shazam, another movie about family.
Yeah, yeah.
Because in Shazam, the argument is like, choose your family, and you give
Aren't the parents Latin as well?
Well, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean,
but also like there's the argument of like choose your family, and also like you share your power with them.
Yeah.
Which is part of it. But in Blue Beetle, it's different because it's like we're family whether we have something to share or not.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, like there's something. I really like that. That kind of stuff resonates with me because it's also so anti a lot of superheroes, which is like become a superhero, immediately lie to everyone. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I didn't get powers. What are you talking about? Like,
Yeah.
it's so the opposite to just like they're the people that are there at the start. They're the people that can still help you even if they don't have powers.
Protecting your families by working with your family, I think, which is like such an antithesis of like the differences between like what we traditionally see with superheroes, which is like protecting your family means like keeping them away from bad.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And you know, like, and that's a thing I like about it. Again, I think it would be a mistake for me to be like, I get what it is to be Latino.
Yeah,
like,
I think for me the challenges are in a few different things, which is like one, it's not a real city. It's
sure.
It's two, we as Canadians are so disconnected, I think, from like Latin culture in the way that like Americans are. Like, I think,
well yeah, and yes, you're right. It's not that we don't have Latin populations up
but
here,
it's
but
nowhere near.
But in the States, like, yeah, there's a cross-border.
It's the second like language, right? Like it's,
and also like culturally, it extends across the border between the States and Mexico.
And so I think it's
like, a very different situation.
The amount that we get to reflect onto those things is so much less, right? And
totally.
So I think we can really only pull from movies and things like that, which is unfortunately often shown like poverty within those groups. Like I think that's more often than not, that's the version that we get to see.
Sure, yes.
And so from that component, I think there's things that I can like tie together, being like, oh, I saw in that thing that like there is a point of reference and like a language to be used within like poverty stricken like Latin groups that I'm like, oh, okay, this isn't like a foreign concept to me, and like the vagueness of it. But at the same point, like for me, I'm like, I don't know what like any of their culture is really like besides what I've seen in television.
Yeah, I mean, what I like about it too is that we're not. I mean, there's a version of this too where there's like there are other rungs on that ladder.
Yeah.
You know, like Jaime's family, certainly the way they're depicted in the movie, they're just regular people that fell on hard times. The garage had to close or whatever, right? A thing that's smart in the movie, I'm glad they avoid, is we don't even broach the idea of like the gang thing.
No, yeah, thank God.
In the comics, they do.
Okay.
There's a gang called the Posse that's made up of like metas.
Oh, okay.
And they are, disaffected youth and, marginalized and all this kind of stuff. And the kind of, like their powers aren't necessarily the best or whatever.
Yeah.
But the Posse is like a thing in Jaime's comics. So there is this extra layer of that piece of it too. I think it's smart for the movie not to
touch on it,
or just not to delve too deep into it. It's like, let's focus on the family thing and a certain element of poverty, because it's also, I mean, there are obviously, it probably disproportionately affects like racialized people, but if you're talking about like making a movie that will hit audiences, the idea of like we're like one bad week away from
everybody gets that.
Like we're kind of all there.
Yeah.
I mean, you and I do relatively well for
Yeah,
ourselves, but like we're not
Enough things, yeah.
It wouldn't take too many things
No.
for us to be exactly in their situation.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, that's there's a whole other piece there. So, again, it's not to say that I know what it is to be Latino, but certainly from the movie's perspective, they're not dealing with like foreign concepts.
No, yeah.
And so I think that's smart of them too, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
But yeah,
It really worked. I think that movie's it's a real like delightful kind of romp.
and now we're the masters of Latin culture.
Yeah, come to us with all of your Latin questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's this is the Latin podcast now.
Veni vidi vici. That Latin. Yeah.
Well, that was the last question for this week. We would love to hear from you residents, and maybe you can send us for next week's that episode. You can send us a question.
You can, but the theme hasn't been decided yet.
Oh, is this like a Patreon thing?
Golden Age patrons are picking 2 themes this month because last month with Fan Expo, the theme picking got thrown off. And the final episode this month is our 400.
Holy shit.
So they're going to pick the next 2 weeks. So you'll see on Thursday when the call for questions goes out what that theme is and what the theme for next week is. You'll see.
My God.
But yeah, send those questions.
Well, and you can do that through our various social media platforms.
We are Dr. DC Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, Threads.
Just look Dr. DC up. It's fine.
Dr.
It's
DC.
fine. It's fine. I don't.
On
It's fine. The doc phone is always open.
Blue
28917-3238.
TikTok.
It's 28917-DCU. Our website, drdcpodcast.com or .ca. You can give us a 5-star review on either Facebook or Apple Podcasts. Otherwise, just give us a 5-star review somewhere else. Take a screenshot and email it to us. Oh, the passing out is coming back.
That was close.
Wow, it's been a while.
God, that felt good.
That's that time of the year again.
Fuck yeah.
Why don't you subscribe to our Patreon? And not only can you choose the episode themes once a month, but also you get access to, for $1, you get access to our Discord, the Docscord,
baby,
online fan community. You get access to, for $5, an extra episode every single week.
The double dose. We're in challenge month in September.
That's right, baby. I challenged the doctor to one thing for the month, and so did he to me. And, and then
so did he to me.
And then and to you.
And also to
That's
you.
also to you. And then every single week we are doing a mini sort of weekly challenge. So
that's right.
You want to make sure that you sign up for that. And then if it's $7, well, then you get a bunch of extra content like Bonding Time, the 007 rewatch podcast that the doctor and
my
his wife are doing, but also the previous Fast and the Furious miniseries.
Yeah, Toretto Talks.
That we did with the doctor and his sister. Tons of stuff like that. Video content,
baby.
Voting, all of those things.
All sorts of fun stuff. And all of it helps to support us.
That's right. And you want to do that because we wake up
Support me.
Oh, yeah. And there's a lot to support. Also, if you want to enjoy...
Yeah, lift with your knees.
Yeah.
Or no, your back.
Yeah, there it is. No,
well,
it's
do it with your
it's
knees.
with your knees. Back's what fucks you up.
Oh, right. Yeah. No, I had it backwards.
Yeah.
Man, these squats are going to be fun.
Do you like somebody on the Discord was like, squats are cardio, right?
I mean, they are. I mean, but they're not wrong. But also, I'm not trying to set a land speed record for sit-ups.
Nobody was concerned about that.
Well, exactly. So it's not really a cardio problem.
Anyways, if you like what we do here, you might enjoy the content over on our other podcast, Ghost Facers, a Supernatural Rewatch, where we watch every single episode of the CW Supernatural. It's 15 seasons. We're into season 8 now.
Season 8, baby.
We just released the first episode of season 8 with series regular Kyle Clark.
That's right.
Yeah. So if you like him on here, you might like him on there.
Yeah, baby.
And that is it for this week.
Adios.
Ciao, ciao.
Superheroes, they always fight for what is right. Live with danger and adventure, they are men of might.
This was a Brain Freeze podcast.